Thank you for coming. This evening's scratch performance of our new work in progress, White Bear River. We've been working in this lovely Onca Gallery today and yesterday, the three of us, thanks to recently, was that scientists in the Arctic can drill down with this incredible machine really deep into the ice, like 2 miles down. And they pull out this huge, 2 miles, huge long cylinder of solid ice. And the reason they do it is because they can analyze the particles in the layers of these tubes of ice. And they can tell us a lot about the atmosphere at every different stage in our history. It was a story about a man who went into the most beautiful, perfect, pristine, lush, wild wilderness and destroyed everything he could see moving, living, breathing in it. And it was very gory, and we were really disturbed. And for both of us, it kind of spoke of something of our collective human nature. I guess the earth holds our stories. And the problem with the ice is that it cracks and it melts. And it's so beautiful and it's shining. It's hard, like diamonds, so you think you're safe. But the problem with ice is it betrays us. George Cartwright's Journal. Wednesday, July 22nd, 1778. About half a mile upriver, I came to a very strong chute of water. From thence, I saw several white bears fishing in the stream above. I waited for them, and in a short time, a bitch with a small cub swam close to the other shore and landed a little below. The bitch immediately went into the woods, but the cub sat down upon a rock, when I sent a ball through him, at the distance of over 120 yards at the least, and knocked him over. But getting up again, he crawled into the woods, where I heard him crying mournfully, and concluded that he could not long survive. The report of my gun brought some others down, and another she-bear with a cub of 18 months old came swimming close under me. I shot the bitch through the head and killed her dead. Blinded him most completely. His whole head was covered in blood. Entirely covered in blood. Plunged into the woods, knocking his head on every tree and rock that he met with. Another she-bear, seconded by another cub of 18 months, could not resist the temptation. An enormous old dog bear came out of small bushes, his nose close to the ground, his eyes not far from it. 5 yards away from me, and I put my ball through his skull. My ball through his skull. And he rolled, and he rolled, and he rolled, and he fell into the river.
Professor Randa, University of Calgary, 1994. Of all the animals that you hunt, Nanook, the polar bear, is the most prized. Native hunters consider Nanook to be wise, powerful, and almost a man. Some call the polar bear the great lonely rover. The Inuit ate polar bear meat and used the fur to make warm trousers for men and soft boots for women. Hunters paid respect to Nanook's soul by hanging the skin in an honoured place in the igloo for several days. If the bear had been male, The hunter offered its spirit tools such as knives and bow drills. If the bear was female, the hunter offered knives, skin scrapers and needle cases. Native people believed that polar bears allowed themselves to be killed in order to obtain the souls of the tools, which they would take with them into the hereafter. Legend says that if a dead polar bear was treated properly by the hunter, it would share good news with other men, so they would be eager to be killed by him. Bears would stay away from hunters who failed to pay respect.
He was eager to leave industrial Nottinghamshire and to start a new life, to find new opportunities in this newfound land. He loved hunting and fishing, he loved the wilderness, and he decided he was going to set up a business trading furs and fish, sending them back to England. But to do this, he needed to establish friendly relations with the local Inuit. So after a few months, he managed to befriend one of the southern tribes that lived near his colony. And they established some mutual respect, and they would visit each other. He went hunting with his friends from the tribe, and they would talk to each other and started to trade. George would buy magnificent fox furs and polar bear skins and whale bones from the Inuit, and he would, in exchange for beads and skeins of thread and little combs that he brought from England, things that were worth pennies. They seemed to satisfy the Inuit. After some time, George thought it would be fun to take a few of the Inuit back to England with him on a visit, to meet his family and to meet some of the prestigious people who he told about his adventures in Newfoundland, some of the important men in London. So he took 5 members of the tribe with him on a boat that December 1772. Atiok, the shaman of the tribe, took Lavinia, Atiok's younger brother. Mikiuna took Lavinia's daughter, aged 4, and her mother, Mikongokwe, and Calvik took Lavinia's wife. When they got to London, crowds and huge hordes of people couldn't believe what they were seeing. They'd never laid eyes on people who looked like this. They were dressed so differently, their faces were different, these huge fur parkas, and they were even carrying, well, George insisted that they bring a young male golden eagle with them and one of their wolf dogs. So they walked around London with these animals, and they were followed by hordes of people. People came to visit, they crowded into their house until George said it's got to be visiting on Tuesdays and Fridays because your carriages are filling up the road, you're a nuisance in the neighbourhood, and we're finding this exhausting. In fact, the Inuits did find it so exhausting that after a few weeks, they needed to get out of the city. They were getting depressed with all the smoke and the noise and the people, so George decided to take his Inuit friends to Marnham, his family home in Nottinghamshire. It was much nicer there. George's sisters were enchanted by the Inuit women, and they taught them the latest styles in hair braiding, and they wore beautiful gowns, and they learned to dance the English way. And the men went out riding and hunting on horseback, and things were a lot happier in Marnham. George was able to continue his business, sort out his affairs in England, and load up his ship to take stuff back to Newfoundland. And in July 1773, everything seemed to have gone really well. They'd been to London, and the king had even taken his hat off and smiled at them. A dignitary had presented Calvik with a medallion in a big public showing, and George was happy because he'd been seen that he established his friendly relations and was doing really well out there in Newfoundland. So they set sail. On the first night on board the ship, Calvic complained of terrible pains in her stomach, and they worsened overnight. So the ship had to set anchor off Dorset, and a surgeon came on board and pronounced that Calvic had smallpox. It was as though his own death sentence had been pronounced, because he knew that it was impossible that the others would escape the disease. Sure enough, one by one, the Inuit fell sick.
We hang gallons from Ballinakench, Murphy and some more. And then I tell you all, they suffer like hell on the way to Baltimore. They pawned their gear in Liverpool, and they sailed as they did stand. But they blow some cold nor'westers on the banks of the Newfoundland. We'll scrape around, we'll scrub her with the holy stones and sand. Before they blow some cold nor'westers on the banks of the Newfoundland. The mate, he stood on the forecastle head, and loudly he did roar. You double me in my lucky lass, for you're bound to American shore. Come wipe the blood of a dead man's face, and haul you be damned. But they blow some sense and no esters on the banks of the Newfoundland. We'll scrape her and we'll scrub her with holy stones and sand, for they blow some cold nor'westers on the banks of the Newfoundland.
August 12, 1773. Calvin's hair falling off, and being matted with the smallpox, I had much difficulty to prevail on her to permit me to cut it off and shave her head. I assured her that the smell of the hair would communicate the infection to the rest of her country folks on her return. Yet, I was not able to prevail on her to consent to its being thrown overboard. She angrily snatched it from me, locked it up in one of her trunks, and never would permit me to get sight of it afterwards, flying into a violent passion of anger and grief whenever I mentioned the subject, which I did almost every day, in hopes of succeeding at last.
We'll scrape her and we'll scrub her with holy stones and sand, for the blossom cold nor'westers on the banks of the Newfoundland.
Tuesday, August 31st, 1773. About noon.
Almost the whole of the three southernmost tribes of Eskimo,
Amounting to 500 souls or thereabouts arrived in boats. I placed myself upon a rock near the waterside, and Calvic sat down a few places behind me.
We waited for the landing of the Indians with feelings very different from theirs.
Who were hurrying along with tumultuous joy at the thoughts of immediately meeting their relations and friends again. Woo! On drawing near the shore, and perceiving only Calvic and myself, their joy abated.
And their countenances assumed a different aspect.
They fixed their eyes on Calvic and me in profound and gloomy silence. They inquired, what has become of the rest? And were no sooner given to understand by a silent, sorrowful shake of my head that they were no more, than they instantly set up such a yell as I had never before heard.
Many of them,
particularly the women, snatched up stones and beat themselves on the head and face till they became shocking spectacles.
one pretty young girl gave herself so severe a blow upon the cheekbone that she cut the flesh shockingly and almost beat an eye out.
The violent, frantic expressions of grief were such as far exceeded my imagination, and I could not help participating with them so far as to shed tears most empty. We'd like you to, if you want to, say one or two or three words as a response to the story that you've seen so far. It's just something about the impression, your impression so far of the story that we told. We're going to record it and play it back. That's how we're going to really end the show.
It's because this project is about layers and scraping away and stories and trying to find the truth underneath different stories. So we just thought it would be nice to have the story of tonight documented if you're happy to participate.
And it could be one word you say or a couple of words, it doesn't have to be long.
and we've got 2 minutes to do it. It's going to go very quick.
Truly experimental theatre in the making.
So,
It's kind of like perspectives. It's like
human nature.
tragic, arrogant, and reckless.
Quite profound and sorrowful, and makes you feel bad for human nature.
It affects you. Tragic.
Wait. How does smallpox survive in her? Genuinely interested to know. Genuinely interested to know.
I was sort of thinking what else was happening in the world. Such an isolated time. Pity. That's the word that came to me.
Accidental murder. Poignant.
Devastating.
Confusion.
Only moving.